Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Way of God's Remembrance. This is presented by Awake to Love. I'm Lee here with Cindy. We are the volunteer Zoom hosts and so grateful that you are here. You have arrived for a special gathering. It's the end of the month. Michael Hayes, co-founder of Awake to Love, is joined by Alicia Das, fellow co-founder of Awake to Love, also Michael's wife, and to my knowledge, the world's foremost authority on the angelic kingdom. Together, for the highest good, more blessings, more wisdom, more activation of remembrance for us all. Now, as a way of introduction, I will share Michael's words to bring clarity to the focus and format of this gathering. This is a weekly gathering for those seeking greater awareness of their true nature. There are many paths and approaches to higher consciousness and to greater awakening to who we truly are. The essence, the truth of all these paths is more about remembering who we are and have always been, rather than becoming something different or more than we have seen ourselves to be. A way of God's remembrance goes to the heart, to the intention of all the paths. This is what we will explore together each week. Michael and Alicia will share thoughts and awarenesses that come forward as relevant and purposeful for our time together, followed by questions and answers related to what they share about. We will begin with an invocation of light to help support us all to be in collective alignment. Alicia will lead us in the light invocation. After the light invocation, we will play a recording to lead us in Anai Hugh chanting.
Hello, beloveds. Nice to be with you on this beautiful day. So let's just call ourselves forward into the light. And so just now, take a deep breath in and breathe in the love of God. God's love for you, your love for God. Just take a deep breath, breathe it in all through your body, bringing healing, bringing light. And as you exhale, just let go of anything less than love. And again, now breathing in light, letting go of anything less than light. And one last time, breathing in the joy of spirit. And exhaling anything less. And just keep breathing in love, light, and joy. Breathing out anything less as we open into the light of the Holy Spirit. And we just ask that any imbalances, karma, negativity, stress, untoward energy, just be taken and transmuted easily and through grace this evening for each one present, each one to watch the archives. We send a special blessing to our planet at this time as well. As we open into the light of the Holy Spirit, the light of the Christ, absolutely sacrificing anything that is not of the one accord, that we might come into the highest alignment of the Spirit in every way. As we open to the mystical traveler, preceptor consciousness, the great archangels, the Sarmad, the Sukmad, and any spiritual presences that are for the highest good and the highest alignment to bless us, to lead us, to guide us, to do the work. We just now just be aware of connecting heart to each of those on this call, seen and unseen. Be aware of holding hands with each one present, knowing since there's no time or space that we are all together. And squeeze the hands next to you. Aware that we are truly all in this together. and as one, we are love. And so be it. Berush Bishan.
Just a note to everyone that we've added a higher quality directional microphone. It will make Michael's mellifluous voice much more graceful to hear, and it might come in front of Michael's face at times so that we can also hear Alicia's powerful voice with ease. So much light.
Welcome, everyone. This is A Way of God's Remembrance. And I'm Michael Hayes, and this is my lovely wife, Alicia Das Hayes. And we're glad you're with us. And I would like to begin by asking you all to send my lovely wife the light. She was in the hospital today with some sickness. And so she's felt good enough to give this a go. So we're going to keep her in the light and have her here as long as she wants to be and can be. So let's keep sending her light, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And her voice is a little lower than usual, and part of that's just because she hasn't been well. So bear with us, and if you can't hear, we'll try and do this, and which is fine with me. I'd rather listen to her than myself anyway. A Way of God's Remembrance. Wow. It's interesting because usually in these classes, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about. And usually the same day or 10 minutes before or whatever, I get a sense of direction. And I don't really have a particular direction right now, other than I'm very, very aware of my teacher. And I think a teacher for pretty much most of the people that do our calls, which was John Roger. Passed over about 10 years ago. I guess his birthday was yesterday, which would have been, if he was still alive, he would have been 90. So it was kind of on a lot of people's minds and just kind of on mine in the moment. And a lot of my inspiration to do this and to talk, and particularly this A Way of God's Remembrance part of it, had very much to do with John Roger, my work with him, and also my connection with him, and also, let's say, dreams I've been having with him in the last couple of years. And I had one a couple of nights ago, which reinforced this as something that should be done. And so my experience of John Roger was that he was in remembrance of the divine to such a extraordinarily high degree that almost anything he did or didn't do worked in the deeper sense, because he was always in connection to this higher truth. And as he said a few times, that he could stand up there and say ham and eggs, ham and eggs, ham and eggs, and the same thing would happen. And I always understood it as he was talking from it, not about it. And so talking from it, created a great empowerment. And we'll just take a break till it's done.
People in the chat are saying there's music on, and so they're having a hard time hearing you.
There's music on. We don't hear music. Is it on the computer?
Not on the computer. Was anybody else hearing music? If you could just let us know in the chat.
There's no music coming through on what we are feeding. Perhaps that person has a simultaneous sound current experience going on.
Right.
Or they have music on their computer.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for letting us know you're not hearing music. So hopefully
Great.
that person is hearing the sound current.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about John Roger and look what happens.
There you go. Sound is so loud. Continue.
So I'm just intensely aware of him in this moment and intensely aware of his presence. And that for many years, I and many other people benefited from the overflow of the spirit that came from being around him, from being in contact with him, through focusing upon him, through listening to his words, through connecting to the works and the activities that he initiated and started. And the delight of it and the empowerment that came from it was extraordinary for all of us. Now, I can't really speak for all of us, but I suspect everybody was getting the same thing. Not everybody was aware of it in the same way. Not everybody appreciated it in the same way, and not everybody was as receptive. But I think it was offered to all. And that's my experience of the God force that comes through somebody like John Roger, and ultimately comes through all of us as we allow it and as we cooperate with it. Another way of saying it is that God force is entirely present in and around us and through us and in and around and through all things. But certain people come forth, or certain consciousnesses come forth that have the capacity to amplify that is always present. And the amplification of it makes it more accessible or more conscious or more knowable to everyone who's willing to come into that knowing. And so from that perspective, I experienced that the work he was doing continues, and he continues to do it just without a physical form. However, I think he's utilizing other physical forms, perhaps you, perhaps me, perhaps all of us, to continue that work of the amplification of truth. And it is that amplification of truth, which is the essential blessing and the essential purpose of the conscious that we would call that traveler consciousness, interfacing in greater ways with particular forms. We tend to think of, well, somebody comes forward, like let's say John Morton at this point, and working as an anchor for that. And I go, an anchor for it and also an amplifier of it. And so we're in a time where the capacity for all of us to come into that availability to be also amplifiers of this great truth. It's almost like if we looked at John Rogers so essentially connected to that truth of God that he was amplifying it, and then others come in and amplify the same thing, or perhaps they amplify it as it came through him, but regardless, it becomes a a crescendo of amplification, a little bit like the echo, which says love, 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 love. And God is love, 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 love. That's kind of how I visualize it. And I suspect the truth of it, because I've seen the great angels, who we're undoubtedly going to hear a lot about tonight, fulfilling a function similar to that out of the Godhead, where they become amplifiers of the message of God, and amplifiers and also commutators of it, that it becomes translatable to be more consciously receivable to more other consciousness on more levels. So this work of the amplification of God's purpose continues. And my experience with John Roger continues to provide this service for God and for each of us. And I am grateful to be able to contribute to that, and invite you all to open yourselves to contribute in any way you can. Some ways are different than others, some are more unique, but the intent to be available to it is the key thing. And then God will decide how each of us will be used or utilized. For God knows us and our aptitudes and our gifts, and how we are uniquely suited to serve the divine purpose. And God will both call that forward in us and then step through us or step into us and create a natural amplification of it. It's something that's always going on. It's something that is eternal and persistent. I think it's something we would all like to experience more fully, and I think we all are going to have that opportunity. This seems to be a time of amplification. So I welcome John Roger. I welcome John Morton. I welcome all those who are amplifiers of this higher light to serve in this time, including the travelers through the ages, to work and walk and move, and each of us to also let that is the amplifying power appear within us and produce within us and through us the greater messaging of this spirit. For this opportunity, I am so grateful. I'm going to turn it over to my lovely wife, Alicia. If she has anything more to add, I'm sure she does. I hope she does. And then we'll move on after that to some other things. We have more time tonight, so we can be a little more loquacious.
Good work. I don't know that they can hear me. Mind if I take this off so we can pass it back and forth? And texting with Lee about it. Also, I'm not sure how to take it off.
Why don't we just do that?
Linda's gonna be in front of her face. Sorry for the awkwardness, guys. Can you hear me? You can hear me fine? Okay. When our beloved Lee does a little sharing, I'm gonna see if I can move it to the middle so it's not in front of Michael's face. Okay. There we go. Well, I thought that was beautiful. I don't have much to add. I just wanted to share a quick JR story that is not, to my awareness, public knowledge. Many years ago, let's see, goodness, maybe 30, I was riding with John Roger at Windermere, riding horses. I was an English equestrian growing up, and so cowboying with John Roger was a dream come true, because I always wanted to take these fancy horses out on a trail, and I was never allowed to. So fast forward then many years, I had the honor of riding with JR sometimes, and boy, was he a cowboy. Oh my goodness. So we were riding at Windermere, which is the ranch owned by the church, which I highly recommend going to visit if you haven't. And thank God we were on sure-footed Arabians, most of us, because there's something called sliding rock there. Sliding rock or slippery rock. In any case, it's both. And JR's like, I'm going down there. And literally we were riding that day with a professional fancy trainer in Malibu, big jumping horses, etc. She said, I can't do that. I'm afraid to do that. I'm not going to do that. JR's like, I'm going to do it. Who's with me? And meanwhile, I'm going, probably they're not going to take JR out. So I'm going to go. Because who doesn't want to just, go with JR? Literally, we're going straight down, basically sliding down rocks on horseback. Much scarier than jumping the 6-foot jumps that I used to do. And so I think it was myself, JR, and probably Zeus, and that may have been it. There may have been somebody else. And we go down, and then we get down to the bottom of these sliding rocks, and I'm, thanking my lucky stars and God in heaven and etc. And then he's like, okay, I'm going down that one. And I'm like, that's not a trail, JR. You know that, right? And it's even steeper. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm coming with you. He's like, nope, you guys stay here. So he goes down this, where he disappears into the brush, and we're just, we're sitting there praying and seating and etc. He takes a while to come back, and I'm talking to Zeus. I'm like, should we go after him? And he's like, no, we'll hold. He's probably okay. And so he comes back quite a while later with grass in his hair and dirt on his face, and clearly he's had quite a spill. We're like, oh my God, JR. And he's laughing. And I'm like, oh my God, JR, are you okay? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And he's like laughing the whole way back to the barn. And if you ride, that horses, when they're going back to the barn, pull pretty steadily, so we're going back at a pretty fast pace. And he gets off, he's in a good mood. He's still laughing. I found out later that he had, I don't know if he'd broken something but he had to go to the hospital. And I don't know if he'd broken something. It was just a severe sprain or bruise or what, I can't remember at this point. I don't know if that's not when he had the famous bruise on his whole bottom, which he showed us. That was a different time. But he definitely was injured enough that he had to go to the emergency room. And it was a pretty serious injury. And I said, JR, you got up laughing. You must have been in such pain, because I believe the part he hurt was his hip, which of course she's sitting on the whole way back to the barn at this fast clip. And I said, you got up laughing. And he said, Alicia, you got to get up laughing or crying. Might as well laugh. And that was such a beautiful reminder to me that whatever we're going through, it's all an inside job. I'll tell you one more quick story, and then we'll begin the sharing. So of course we know Viktor Frankl's famous quote about, that and I believe the Freedom to Choose project was named after it, but we all have, the only true freedom we have is that within, where we can choose. Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp, and he survived because he was of service. He served his fellow prisoners and then made it out alive, and then wrote amazing books, Man's Search for Meaning and others. And a few years ago, I went to a retreat at a remote location in Northern California, and it was the first time prisoners, and we're talking former lifers, who had been freed, were now going to show civilians, is what they called us, or the free people, the work they had done in prison, this transformational work they had done in prison, which was really profound. And we're here in the desert, these guys are pretty rough, but also you could just tell that they had such heart. And I befriended one of them. They did a process where the free people choose their dog, and like DAWG, one's dog in prison is their protector, their mentor, which I think is so beautiful. So in the ceremony, I picked this man named Robert as my dog. And we went out into the desert after the training, and it must have been quite late. It was pitch black. And he's told me his story. And he had committed murder. He'd been an addict starting at age 11, had a very rough story. And he started telling me about things he'd done in prison that I'd never even heard of. And I realized at one point that I felt completely safe with him, even though I'm out in the desert. You know, he was a lifer. He'd gotten out, and he told me how that happened. And it's a beautiful story of grace, true story. So Robert was in for life, and he'd been in 6 years of solitary when I met him. And he'd just been freed 6 months before I met him. So Robert was in his cell, and an inmate, a fellow inmate, he believed was going to try to murder him. And that happens in prison more than we know. And so he had started doing this work called the Inner Circle Foundation, and he had also become a Christian. And so his mentor in the Inner Circle Foundation, another fellow prisoner, and so Robert was planning to kill this man before he killed him, right? And Robert's mentor told him to meditate on it first. So he meditated, and what he saw was himself absolutely surrendering, spreading out his arms like Jesus, and completely surrendering rather than choose violence again, even though it meant that he would probably never get out of prison. I mean, even though it meant he would probably die, even though it meant if his intel was correct, he would be murdered. But he chose that over violence. Well, the prisoner did come to his cell. Robert did exactly what he was shown in his vision from spirit. And the other prisoner, completely changed his mind, didn't hurt him at all. And shortly after that, Robert was granted parole and freed against all odds. And I believe it was grace, because he had chosen to take the higher road against all of his instinct and certainly against his own personal desires. And because of that brave choice, and this level requires a lot of brave choices, he was freed. And when I met him, you know, he is a gentle giant and still rough around the edges, but really such a beautiful soul. And that was my experience with several of those men. But the reason I bring this story up is I said, Robert, what's it like to be out after, I believe it was 26 years in prison? What's it like to be out? And he said a remarkable thing. He said, Alicia, really, what's the difference? It's all an inside job. It's all about our inner attitude and perspective. Sure, it's great, but it really doesn't matter where you are. It matters where your heart is, where your head is. So to me, that really underscores what John Roger has been teaching us for so many years, that, you know, we have this privilege of being on the planet of free choice, which is a great privilege. It's a bit of an onerous one. I mean, if you're like me, you probably wish that God would descend and say, go thou this way, right? You'd totally do it. I would, but we don't quite have it that easy. We have to go to spirit and discern as best we can the highest choice. And this makes us as co-creators with God, which I think is what was meant when it said God created man in his own image. Man was created. I don't think it's, you know, God has, you know, 2 arms and a headband. I think that it's about us learning to co-create, to choose as God and eventually from God, so that we are accessing, experiencing, and certainly remembering who we are as God. So that was a lot longer sharing than I thought I would do, but I I just want you to know that we both love you very much and send you so much light. And now we're going to let our angel Lee take it away. I'm going to perhaps try to move this microphone so it's not in front of Michael while Lee is talking. See you in a sec.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Michael. So much light and love and blessings to you both. I will share guidelines for questions. Questions are to be about a way of God's remembrance and what Michael and Alicia have shared. To ask a question, please raise your Zoom hand. You can find that by hovering near the bottom of your Zoom window. Click on the React button. A pop-up appears. Choose Raise Hand. Please also turn on your video for full participation. If you are on a low bandwidth connection and are unable to, so be it. Most important, and since so many of us have had the blessing of working with Michael over so many years for assistance in clearing so many things, this is not that. Please do not ask questions of a personal nature and do not ask Michael for assistance in clearing. Questions are to be for your benefit, the benefit of those of us gathered, and those who will participate via the archives. We ask that you look to the integrity of your intentions before asking a question of Michael and Alicia, and thank you for your cooperation. Finally, I will share the legal consent. By raising your hand and asking questions of Michael and Alicia, you are giving full consent to Awake to Love to make the audio and video of this gathering, including your sharing, available as online archives for anyone to access. Please do not raise your hand and do not share unless you are in full agreement. Thank you.
Okay, we've just done a surgery on the mic. Can you hear us okay?
How are they going to let us know?
Lee's going to let us know, except Lee's muted. You're muted, love.
That mic is made to be close, so that is not optimal. At that distance, the laptop mic would be better. That's
Oh,
why I think it's your guys' choice. Either boom it back and forth, hand hold it back and forth, or maybe we just shift to the laptop with Michael speaking more loudly.
you want to just do the laptop? Speak loud. Okay. Okay.
Can you hear us now?
Can you move a little closer? Let me move the laptop. Okay. How's that, Lee?
Good on Alicia. Let's see on Michael.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, delightful.
All right.
You're the cutest person ever, Libra.
All right. My mellifluous voice.
Mellifluous.
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 All right, we're going to take some questions. Linda Mogitz.
Hi, thank you both so much for doing this. It's absolutely wonderful every week. Alicia, thank you for mentioning what you did, your experience with the person who was incarcerated. I do reading for Freedom to Choose, and I personally have come into contact with incarcerated angels.
Oh.
They are absolutely angels, and it's an honor to read what they write, and they're in the process of discovering a different them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, sometimes you can almost sense the bewilderment of, you know, wait a minute, what happened? How did I even get here? You know, they know what they did, but they're coming from a different them now. So it's just really, really beautiful to see and hear what they write. And it's an honor. And thank you for sharing that. Also, Alicia, you once shared about the Tuan at the center of the earth. If there's any more that you can share about that in the Christing of the earth, I'd love it. And anything you might have to say about Great Archangel Gabriel, I'd love to hear that too. So thank you.
Okay, absolutely. in case you're wondering what Michael's looking at, he's petting our dog who's behaving and not trying to be in the shot at the moment, though I wouldn't guarantee that he won't. um, so yes, Michael he's Halo kind of has Michael wrapped around his little finger. I'm just gonna tell on him. It's very cute.
You shouldn't tell on Halo. That's
I
not
shouldn't tell on Halo. Oh, you're right. So let's see. Well, I love your question. Thank you, Lynn. The Tuan, let's start with that. The Tuan is a beautiful Christed orb in the core of the planet. And so I wanted to clarify something about our archangelic ancestry really quick first. So it's really about our archangelic, not our angelic ancestry. So this is a much longer discussion, and it's all in my book, but to come on this planet, right, from the angelic, one would, in my opinion, one would have to have evolved to at least archangel. Well, not at least, but to an archangel first, because archangels have free choice, complete free choice, free will. They are like us. They've got to go to spirit and try to discern the highest choice, which can be a great struggle for them, just as it is for us. But it's also that which makes us grow and that which makes us co-creators with God. So it's very much a sovereign state to be an archangel, to be a human archangel, and that the worlds are merging is something I was able to cooperate with JR, which is another beautiful JR story, but I may launch into that later. It happened in Morocco. It was very beautiful. But to answer your question, so the Tuan is something that both Michael and I saw separately and didn't talk to each other about. And then I started sharing with him about it. He's like, oh, I've seen that too. And so that happens sometimes with things with us, where we'll go in and see things, but not share about it until we really worked it ourselves, even with each other. So the Tuan now is something that we've shared about a lot, and it helps. It has a few incredible ways to take us into the Christ, specifically the Christ, into spirit, yes, but it's specifically the Christ and into grace. We talked about grace with Robert's story. So the Tuan is a golden Christed orb in the core of the earth, and I'll lead you in a moment to connect to that. And when we connect to the Tuan, we connect to other magical beings. So beings who are looking to be Christed, beings who already are Christed. Of course, most of you have heard about the 144,000 from Venus. So I'll just oversimplify that just in case you haven't heard of it. So it said that 144,000 souls came from Venus, which was already Christed, and came to Earth, incarnated on Earth to help this planet be Christed. And angels, archangels are, Michael calls them the biggest arm, well, angels, period, the biggest arm of the Christ work. So when we touch into the Tuan with our awareness, which you can do while I'm talking and ignore my words if you're starting to experience it. So when we touch into the Tuan, it also connects us to other, what I call magical beings, certainly those doing soul transcendence, those who have a strong archangelic ancestry, those who are even positive extraterrestrial, like Venusians, etc., those who have already been Christed. And when we touch into the Tuan, it helps us to more move into that Christed state and to not feel alone and to not feel like, is it only a small group of us doing this work? So this work, yes, doing the work of the Christ, much, there's of course many humans, but there's also many invisible beings, not physical. So archangels, great archangels, and I recommend you only work with great archangels. And we all have a guardian angel, which is super helpful. Another time I'll share about that. But we don't even have, I think Michael said septillions of angels, which is a way bigger than trillions. And, there's only 150 great archangels. So I recommend one works with them. They are the spiritual masters in that realm and in this one. So the Tuan reflects the level of Christine of the planet. And it's growing, which is fantastic. So as we are more christened, as we act as Christ, as we are Lynn the Christ, Michael the Christ, etc., then that helps the Tuan grow. And as the Tuan grows, it in turn helps us to move more into the Christ, move more into grace. So and you know, Hermes Trismegistus said, as above, so below. And to me, this means that, so in the way I found the Tuan is I was led to go deep in the earth, and I'd always gone up to connect to spirit. But this time I was led to go deep in the earth, and I had a very profound experience, equally as profound as, you know, going up. Now we want to, of course, go up and way up, right? But there really is no up or down ultimately, because there is no time or space. So connecting to the Tuan also helps us ground, helps us soar. But when you're grounded, your basic self feels safe, stable, and secure. And then they can let us go high. And then we don't have that resistance. You know, I know we've all had times where we feel the spirit pressing upon us, and it's, you know, and we'll resist it. I mean, I certainly can put two hands in the air on that one. Or we can resist, we can have a great spiritual experience and then experience pushback after, right? So grounding can help lessen all that and help us go even higher. So to connect to the Tuan, and I do have some meditations to the Tuan, free meditations on my YouTube channel if you want a longer experience. But it's, if you will just take a moment and drop a grounding cord. So it's just sensing, if you will, roots from your root chakra and your feet chakras deep into the earth, into the core of the earth, touching into the Tuan, into this golden Christed orb, into those who have been Christed into the Christing of Mother Gaia. And so you do this on faith until you experience it. So you're dropping the grounding cords and you feel the solidarity of the earth, the growing things winding around you, healing you, bringing you into greater love of life and respect for life as a human. And then while you touch into the Tuan, you are taken into the Christ. You can relax and allow yourself to be healed. You can be dynamic and see what you experience. There's no wrong way to do this, other than, as JR says, not to do it. So as you touch into the Tuan with the fingertips of your awareness, you're immediately becoming expanded, larger than life, for indeed you are much larger than life. You are life itself. And so once you feel stable in that, then allow your consciousness to soar up. You're not taking the earth energy up. You're just allowing your consciousness to soar well up and through your body, your crown chakra, into the higher realms. And it may go at the speed of light now that you feel secure. And so drop your reference points and travel up higher. And higher still. Perhaps hearing the sound. And now up higher like a rocket. And as you go, you may be aware of spiritual presences assisting you up ever higher. And you are ultimately expanded, for you are deep in the core of the earth as well as high, high in the heavens. You are one with God, one with the Christ. And you can allow yourself to keep traveling with that. If you have any other questions about the Tuan, you could drop them in the chat and we can answer them in a bit. Lynn, please feel free to keep your eyes closed and keep experiencing. Archangel Gabriel is one of the great archangels. our JR came into Living in Grace several years ago and said, Archangel Gabriel gave me the 8-foot cube of light for you as a spiritual protection. Gabriel is the angel of the Annunciation, told Mary that she would be giving birth to the Christ child, told, was it Elizabeth? That she would have John the Baptist. Was that Elizabeth? Elizabeth, that she would be bearing John the Baptist. Wasn't she 90 or something? Very old, much older than we, that was also a miracle, just not talked
Oh,
about.
yeah.
She was way too old to have a child, but she did. And we can call upon Gabriel for many things. Probably the primary thing that he is known for, or has aegis over, stewardship over, is bringing forward higher messages. So Michael and I call this speaking from spirit, where you allow yourself to receive a message to share. And I recommend that you do that certainly for others, but also for yourself. I start most mornings with that. So Gabriel, in my experience, comes in on a very beautiful green color. You may see green, you may not. Angels are pretty much formless, but you may see a little form just to help you relate more. And thank you, Lee. That's very sweet of you. Angels don't have form, they're essence. They're not physical. So if we don't experience form with them, we're probably experiencing a little closer, but they will sometimes show us the flip of a jewel-toned robe or a sword, because these are symbolic for us. Gabriel is very, very helpful with spiritual clearing. And in fact, that's Michael's main guy, main angel. So is there anything else you want to share about Gabriel?
No, that's really true. When the really powerful forms of negativity are present, he'll show up. He's done that with me for a very long time, 30 or 40 years. So he alerts me if he comes in. I know to be looking for that and assists. Nobody can understand fallen archangels as well as angels. And he's particularly adroit at seeing the subterfuge that they work with. And I've learned a great deal through him about it.
So if you sense that there's something to clear with you, Gabriel is a great angel to call upon. You can call on any of them. They're one with God, so they have lots of different areas they can work in. But it can be nice to call upon a particular one, especially if you have heritage, ancestry with them, which I'm looking at you, you absolutely do. So, they're very much complementary to our path of soul transcendence. They're a both and. They're an added unto, absolutely not a substitute, an added unto. And very much in service to us. Service is what the angelic realm was created to explore for God. So I'm going to bring forward a short message. At least I think it'll be short, from Gabriel for all of us. Soul transcendence is a direct gift from God, your creator, that which loves you beyond comprehension. We stand in service of soul transcendence, of John Roger, of the traveler consciousness. We help you navigate the privilege of human life with greater grace, levity, and guidance. Because we are messengers of God, we can assist you to connect to the highest guidance, even while lightly walking in the flesh. Call upon us and know that we all play for the same team, as the Christ, as the traveler, as the preceptor, even as that which is light. We are very, very close in now at this pivotal time. Please open your hearts, bodies, minds, and souls to the greater light upon the planet, and know we are with you every step of the way. We work together to help christen this planet, to help christen individuals, that yea, you would know yourself as the Christ, as one with the Christ, not apart from you, that you would look at your light, not your shadows, for that is the truth of you. And we hold a never-ending vision of your transcendence. Gaze through our eyes occasionally, and you will see the magnificence of who you are. My love is with you. Amen. Oh, you're muted, sweetheart. There we go.
Thank you so much. That was exquisite. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I have this to listen to again now.
Yes, you do. Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Thank you. David Stern.
That is David Stern.
Yes.
Yes.
Without my glasses.
Oh, you're going to have your glasses on. Yes, there he is.
Spirit.
Hello, Michael and Alicia.
Hello.
This is truly a great, great blessing. Thank you. My question had to do with something Michael's been talking about for a while, which was how if you're really going all out for, I guess, God realization, then that's the wrong way to go about it. Is that correct, Michael, the way I'm putting it?
I wouldn't put it like that.
Well, you did something like that. You said that John Rogers said you were doing it the wrong way because you were
Yeah,
trying.
well, you're referring to something I shared when I had a sharing with John Roger.
Yes.
And I think at the time I shared, I don't remember what I shared, but I shared something I had seen, some kind of vision. And it's a long time ago, so we're pushing 35 years ago, a long time ago. But you said to me, well, when something is ordained by God, it must happen.
Uh-huh.
And the only question is, how long will it take you? Will you do it in 2 years? Will it take you 6 years?
Uh-huh.
My response was, well, JR, what do I do? What do I do? I'll do anything to make this happen.
Yeah.
And his response was, well, that's exactly the wrong approach.
Yeah.
The less you do about it, the faster it will happen.
Love, they're having a little bit of a hard time here. Just lean forward a little. There we go.
So let's look at what that really is saying. It's saying that I can't do it. Look at
Right.
it this way. The God consciousness that you really want to experience, you get into that consciousness by getting out of yourself, by getting away from the illusionary you, the I, the me. You get beyond it. You free yourself from the whole identification as being this in time and space, and this is your reality. And what you're doing is you're coming into remembrance that you exist entirely apart from this and beyond this. You exist as pure consciousness, as pure love. You exist as a manifestation of God in the purity of God.
Mhm.
And the form and the storyline that we create for ourselves with these bodies, with these lives, is something that will take us through a process we will think of as an evolution or an advancement, a growth. And at a certain point, we come into this world and get lost in the great game of this world and the illusion, life after life after life after life. But eventually something starts to stir within the consciousness, this incompleteness with all of it, this knowing that there's something so much more. Because see, us as the soul, as an extension of God, is operating through this form. But this form, because of the power of the ego and the personality, is so dominant that the soul, which came in here to learn and be an instrument of God so that God could learn through the soul's learning, starts to be called in a strange way back to the truth of itself. And so that calling starts to precipitate a search. Now, what happens is we start to search for the truth, for God, but we will end up equating that we're searching for ourselves, our true selves. Well, the thing that is we could call the pretend self, the ego, will automatically try to, in a sense, co-opt the search and make the search a search of trying to become more, to become better, to become wiser, to become more clairvoyant, to become more powerful, to become more generous and kind, to be just so that there's this increase, and that increase will be our increase. And so that answer that John Roger gave me was really saying, the less you do about it, less that the pretend you does, the faster you'll get to the true you, because the true you is beyond the form. So when they say let go and let God, what you're letting go is the story of your individuation, the story of you as this body in time and space.
Well, that's actually was my question was, because I had that in mind, what you were saying was that I wouldn't be doing it through efforting, that I would be inviting the God within me, God and the great God to
Now, you can do it through efforting, but
bring me to remembrance.
yeah, the efforting is not the efforting of becoming. It could be an efforting to let go. It's almost like you do things to help you become more aware and more awake. So it's like you do spiritual exercise, you meditate, and you're still doing those things, but the way you frame it is not that you're doing this. Like I'm not chanting the tones to increase my closeness to God. It's a strange way of saying it. I'm chanting those tones to support awareness of God's closeness to me. It's a reversal. Everything reverses in there. See, people will take like meditate. Let's use the initiation tones, the sounds and stuff, since those are great tools. But if we looked at the tone as when I'm chanting that tone, it's like both a reminder to me of God's presence, but it's also an invitation for God to take over entirely this consciousness story.
Thank you for saying that, because I was just hearing that inside about the invitation as it just, and then you just spoke it.
It is really an invitation. So it's like, this is so hard to explain it, but see, there's nowhere that the spirit isn't. So there's nowhere we can be that God isn't. And so what we're really doing is we're inviting God to make itself known, to, in a sense, take over this process. It's strange because it's already doing it, but we're in ignorance of it. We have this amnesia.
Well, if I felt it did shift something inside of me by making that adjustment, and I did that on the basis.
I saw that happen with you, but see, that's going to happen. But you got to keep doing that again and again, because your habituation is to go to the other approach, because for life after life after life, you and I and everybody else was doing this other approach. In the spiritual world, it's sometimes called the great path of becoming. And the great path of becoming is this whole attempt to create an increase in us, increase in our self that we become more God, we become more God-like.
Mhm.
But
No,
the
this is new to me. This is something, this is just starting to happen, like within the last week that I started feeling that shift. Yeah.
well, it's one of those things that was always there from my perspective in the teachings that John Roger was doing, but it was kind of blended into everything else. Probably because when he first started doing this, there were very few people really ready for this
Wow.
to really get it. Because if you go to the core things he repeated over and over and over again, we'd say, well, not one soul will be lost. Well, if not one soul will be lost, well, then everyone's already found. It means if we're already found, then we're already with God. He said, the blessings already are.
Hmm.
Well, if the blessings already are, then like when Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is at hand, well, that means it's here. The blessings are all here.
Hmm.
So they're all here, but are we here with them in terms of being conscious of? Now, one of the big things that gets in the way of that is this storyline that we have to change or become different or somehow earn it to get it. But that's not how it's set up. It's always so. It's just there's a very powerful force within this time-space experience that distracts us from that truth and convinces us that we have this great pursuit to go into to get it. Like
So
we have.
do you have any advice as to how I and we could better move into that, allowing God to do us in that
Well,
wake?
first of all, the John Roderick talked about one of the things that well, he didn't talk a lot about it, but it's in his writings, in his books. It was called the spiritual law of assumption.
Right, right.
So if you want God consciousness, you must assume it. So I always take the word assume and I break it into as you me, assume. And so when you meditate, you can practice just like when you would practice, let's say, a soul realm mock-up, and imagine you're walking in the soul realm and you're hearing these sounds. Well, you could do the same process with that. Whereas when you're meditating, or maybe if you're sitting meditating and you're used to meditating and picturing yourself going up into this sound, this place, and the sound connecting, instead see yourself up in that high place, coming down in and through this form as the sound of God itself. And you are that sound that comes down through the form.
Wow.
See? And I would take everything you do with that and practice that and reverse that.
Oh, thank you.
I learned to do it because when I really came awake, I realized that was what was really going on. And it had always been so, and it is always so. And then as soon as, for me, it's suddenly when I was feeling that separation and started to struggle there, wait a minute, I know the truth of this. And I would instantly go into that awareness of the spirit on high and be God looking and look back through, and it would be the truth of it would be instantly I sort of reclaimed in my consciousness. Reclaimed because it's always what is so. God is doing all of us all the time. We keep trying to play this game that we're going to learn to do more God, as if we in this body could do God. But God to us. God is, we're like little puppets, and God's doing a little puppet show. And so we got to go, oh, well, instead of being the puppet, we can realize we are the puppeteer. But when we're down here with the soul's participation, we're having the kind of the dual distinction of being the puppeteer, making it all dance, but also having some identification with the puppet.
Hmm.
The key thing that we've been missing is the realization that we're the puppeteer.
There are definitely times when I'm well aware that I'm not just this personality in this body, that I'm definitely, and that's a beautiful experience. And I have it often, but I felt that there was probably more levels of coming into remembrance for for me ahead. So that's why I've been asking along this line.
I'm still coming in greater levels of it.
Okay.
It's amazing. I'll be really there, and then all of a sudden I'll realize there's something between me and God,
Mhm.
which means in some way I'm holding on to me. Meaning there's something that in my paradigm as an individual of existence that I'm identified with or attached to, and that is blocking the truth that there is really no me, there's only God.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you said that, I got an inward sense of seeing a beauty beyond the personality, just as you said that. So,
Well, I have found that while I'm doing this, the Spirit offers the truth of this to people. And I watch it happen through the classes, through the people.
mhm.
So when you come into the truth of it, you know realities it is known from Spirit. The Spirit knows itself, and it knows the availability to itself in all parts of manifestation. And the parts of manifestation that have a limitation on that availability or restriction of that availability, it knows that too.
Mhm.
But when it creates a visitation upon us, it shows up in that remembrance, which activates in us as a reminder of, oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
You want to add something back?
Oh, that was beautiful.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to your book, Alicia.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you. Your music is exquisite. I always
Thank
listen
you.
to it when you post it. David did the music for our wedding.
Yeah.
That's right. And
Once
look, it
again.
works. It works. You're together.
That's right.
God bless you both.
Bless
Dave.
you.
Take care. Should we do another one?
Sure. I have been trying mic options when Michael was sharing, but I think if you can just kind of sit forward a little bit, and then we have another mic we'll set up for next time when it's both of us. So thank you for your patience. Michelle, Holly.
Hi.
Hi.
I have awareness that ever since I coined the term for myself, finding Dharma in my karma,
What was that term?
Finding Dharma in her
Finding
Finding
Dharma in your karma. Great. Yeah.
Dharma in my karma. So I noticed, to coin that phrase, that my life had been set up to offer me nothing. And I had to build from within and from my sensing, which thankfully I have had quite a lot. And lately I've sensed that I'm being undone in this beautiful way. The last one, however, was a situation where I saw myself being pulled inside out. And there's a kind of a weirdness to that. It's not an unpleasant situation. I'm not revolted, or it wasn't gory. It was telling me that, life is this inside job, and this is how we co-create. What is inside you is more important than what is outside, which is basically underlying everything else that I've experienced and the other types of undoing. There is a slight weirdness though with it. And so that's why I'm communicating in this beautiful opportunity. When I take myself to the undoing, which is what I'm going to say is when I, as you, me, I can be mostly completely there in my awareness. However, I seem to keep bouncing back to that image of being turned inside out. And the other thing I would say is where JR said he wanted his mind to leave him alone. And I said, me then, like I'm JR. And where Michael said, I want to not want. My thing has been, I want to understand. So if there is anything that can assist us all with that, I'm all ears.
You got something?
I have something brewing, but you start.
Well, the last thing you said, wanting to understand.
Hmm.
Um, if we're really talking about spirit and God, I have not found the going for understanding of that
Mm,
really works.
mm,
I would suggest go for the experience.
mm,
When you have the experience, you'll know.
mm.
When you have that knowing, a byproduct of that knowing will be understanding. See, the mind will want to make understanding the key because
Mm.
it keeps the mind as an essential part of the process. But the mind is actually a huge obstacle to the process.
Sense that I'm having is in my body, is in my heart, like the build up of the pressure. And so that I'm just noticing that.
Well, you're going to notice it in a lot of different ways because you're sensually referencing, which is normal for us human beings. When you talk about being the visualization of yourself being turned inside out
Mm.
is very challenging for you. Well, because it upsets your normal, it upsets the model you hold in your consciousness of you and your existence in time and space. See, when you're born into the world as a little child and you're learning how to walk, part of what you're doing is you create a model, a spatial temporal model of yourself, of your body and where it is. Because see, you come in as consciousness, you're not that body. You actually have to learn to identify with it and to create a sort of a spatial model of consciousness. And you link that up and you start to have control then of the body. There's an intention in the consciousness and the body responds to it. So that's a process that's innate to us. But as you're freeing yourself to do the soul transcendent thing, part of that is freeing yourself from the illusion of space, which is the illusion of that model. Maybe there was a thing I did that helped free, there's a lot of things I did that I haven't talked to anybody about hardly, but there was a thing I used to do for myself that helped to free me from the spatial identification. As a matter of fact, when we get to the point of doing these, we're looking more towards doing more of ongoing classes and going to greater depth. I'll probably teach more of some of those things that work for me to help free me from that. But there are ways to do that where you would be, see, how to say it. The limitation is a limitation in your consciousness of adaptability. See, if I said, Michelle, I'm gonna do a little bit. So if I said, Michelle, and everybody can do this too. I did this in one of my classes a little bit. So, Michelle, so we're going to talk about your we're going to talk about the top of your head, okay? Okay? So everybody, we're going to do that. We're going to talk about the top of our heads, okay? Ready? So right now I want you to be aware of the top of your head. But don't touch it, just be aware of it. So you're touching it to reinforce the kinesthetic model. So be aware of the top of your head. Now I want you to be aware of the back of the top of your head. Okay. Now the front of the top of your head. Now I want you to be aware of the inside of the top of your head. Right? I want you to be aware of the bottom of your top, the bottom of the top of your head. Now I want you to be aware of the top of the bottom of the top of your head.
That is, yeah.
Okay? Now I want you to be aware of the reality of yourself as 10 feet above your head. I'm beating it, but you're taking too long. Now I want you to be aware of the bottom, yourself as the bottom of your right heel. Now I want you to be aware of the inside of the earlobe of your right ear. Now I want you to be aware of the outside of the left elbow.
Mhm.
I want you to be aware of the inside of the Adam's apple. I want you to be aware of the inside of the right nostril of your nose.
Mhm.
I want you to be aware of the outside.
Of the right nostril of my nose.
I want you to be aware. Now I want you to be aware of the back of the front of your head.
Mhm.
Now I want you to be aware of yourself 25 feet in front of the body, looking at the body.
Mhm.
Now I want you to be aware of yourself on the planet Venus, looking down at the bottom. Now I want you to be aware to be in the Alpha Centauri, looking at the body. Now I want you to be aware outside this galaxy, looking back at this galaxy. I want you to be aware out to the edge of this universe, looking back into this.
Mhm.
Now I want you to be trans-dimensionally aware of being in another universe, looking to this universe. Now I want you to be aware of the Tuan in the center of the earth, that golden arm is described. Now I want you to be aware back into the third eye. Be aware of the Christ energetic, infusing your soul with truth. Now I want you to be aware that you are all around the body, looking at the body from all the different possibilities and perspectives all at once. And you are the one that the body is inside. Okay? Now, all we're doing there is we're freeing you from the confinement of a pattern of perceptions of the body and different definition of yourself spatially. And I would do this as part of my meditation, before I would meditate, but I got very specific.
And
I
that's
might take,
interesting.
I might take the little toe on my left foot. I'm on the inside,
Mm.
the bottom of the front of my little toe.
Mm.
And see, the awareness starts moving around, like it's like trying to create a readjustment of the model. But what we're doing is we're freeing ourselves from the model. We can pick it up again. We learn to step outside of it and step beyond it.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'll let Alicia come. I think we did enough of that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I love that exercise. Just briefly, Michelle, a couple of things that could assist is when you say you want to understand, what I wonder is if it's, I want to be safe. I want to have some sort of control, right? And I just read this beautiful quote from Helen Keller, where she said, safety does not exist in nature. The only danger is in playing it safe.
Yeah.
And something that could, I mean, it's very understandable, you know, because we are very comfortable in our reference points. But something else that could assist is to connect to the great archangels, because they're complete essence. They don't have form. They don't have containment or container. They're really one with the undifferentiated consciousness. When my mother was dying, or my mother died, and I was very close to my mother, and I went outside and watched the hearse drive away, and I was sobbing. And the angels said, do you want us to show you what happens after death? Do you want to follow her? And of course I said yes. So I followed her spirit and observed this incredible ecstasy of liberation beyond the body. And of course, when we leave the body, most of the time we will go to the hall of rest. The halls of rest are where we get used to the incredible liberation of not having a body, right? But we don't have to die to experience that. And in fact, that's the goal, right? Is to experience it even while we continue somehow with this crazy place and all the challenges of this level, walking in the body. But that is where we grow. Of course, JR said souls line up to get here because it's even harder than other physical places, right? But we grow so much faster because of the struggle. But you can ask the great archangels. I mean, you can ask a specific one if you want. I usually just say angels. I let them do the bookkeeping, figuring out who's going to come. So, but sometimes I'll connect, obviously, to certain ones. It's usually connecting to whichever one I sense is present. But they can take you into that ecstasy. And to my point of view, you have an archangelic ancestry. Most of us do, because the angelic is a gazillion times bigger than the human and a gazillion times older, and it predated the human. So this is not to go back anywhere, it's to bring all that present. But they are, in essence, they don't have bodies. They don't have minds in the same way. They don't have anything really in the same way. It's pretty much opposite. So you can ask them to take you into that ecstasy of existence in a way that is more where it feels like you have something to hold on to, and just be aware that at some point they will let you go and you will be free flowing consciousness. But having that reference point, because you had that reference point when you were an angel, so you can return to that reference point, which can break that human, very understandable, but again, human fear of no body, no container, no reference points. Because they lived in that place, and you once lived in that place. And then you came here to learn about choice, profound gift and lesson, and also a heck of a hard thing sometimes, right? And this body thing. So it's funny because in one sense we're like, okay, I'm done. Can I leave this planet now? Right? In another sense, no, beloved, you prayed and prayed for this. So,
Look it up.
exactly. Yes. So that, you might do both, where it's like you call upon a great archangel or 2 or 20 to help you be beyond that reference point, and then do Michael's exercise. I think could really help you move beyond wanting to be safe and move into the essence of love itself. And there's nothing more safe than that.
Had the benefit of doing the beautiful courses, and so I can understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Bless you.
Yeah, bless you. You want me to tell Laura? Oh, you want to go with John?
No, yeah.
Laura was first and John was
That's
second.
not why I talk to her every week.
Oh, Laura, so Michael would like to do John first,
Yeah.
and then if we have time, then Laura.
Because you're not here, you don't know who I call.
I don't know who you'd call on. That's true.
That's why.
Okay.
There'll be time. Hello.
Oh,
Hello, thank you for choosing me. A few years ago, I was doing a master's class and I was doing a process. And out of that process, I had an interpretation that I actually had 3 basic selves. Now, I never heard JR mention anything like that, other than just the one basic self. And I was wondering if I misread that interpretation at that time.
I don't see 3 with you, but it's not impossible. It'd be very unusual. Usually because it wouldn't be necessary. But I'm going to let Alicia talk to you about your basic self, or selves and all that.
you can continue.
It's not impossible. John Roger had three basic selves that, but they were one was his basic self, and there were two others that one that was a missionary basic self that had come in supporting him, particularly with his health. That was around a lot. And then there was another one that came in in a certain time period. But fundamentally, he had one. The common is one or two. I mean, I've heard people say they've got five, and I go, yeah, well, okay, whatever. Because people can say whatever they want, but for what purpose? Would five help you, or would it confuse the hell out of you? See what I'm saying? Because the basic selves come in and they have their own personality. They see the basic self has its own karmic stream it's flowing on. The basic self has been embodied in other forms and other consciousnesses and worked with them. The basic self is a way for the soul to interface into this world. The soul, by its nature, is an individuation of God, is so neutral, is so loving and so accepting and open to everything that it has trouble really getting engaged into this world. So the basic self is a consciousness that is evolving, and it is very oriented to the senses and very attracted to this life and to the sensory experience of life. So the pairing of the basic self and the soul helps to draw the soul into engagement in this world, so the soul can, in a sense, get into this world enough to gain the value of the lesson of it. The soul, in its natural nature, would probably kind of hover over it all and kind of watch and learn, but it wouldn't learn in the same way if it interplays and gets really in the whole game. So the basic self being paired with the soul helps to draw it forward. So if you had multiple basic selves, you probably mean that the soul was wanted to be paired or pulled in different directions. But the more you have, it'd be like the more directions it would want to be pulled in. So could one have that? All things are possible in God. Normally it wouldn't do that. You might have multiple basic selves that would come, let's say, in phases. Like you might have a basic self that is operating for you, and you hit a certain milestone in your life, and maybe something happens to you. Maybe you're really sick, or you're in an accident or something. An accident, I mean, and you come out the other side and something's different about you. You may have flipped a different basic self in there because you now are entering a new phase of your life, and a different basic self would be of more service to the action because it has its own proclivities, it has its own past storyline, its own aptitudes. And so the different aptitudes are paired with the soul to help make that soul, this experience of maximum value to it.
Would that have any relation to any traumas that need to be cleared up over the past lives or a past life?
It could,
This life.
but generally you work the karma of the basic self and it'll get worked through you because the basic self is working karma too. But the karma of the basic self will usually be matched up with the soulic karma. So we keep focusing on karma as the thing to be worked out and balanced, but it's really the thing to be learned. From a higher perspective, you understand karma as that's what's to be learned. So the basic self is there to learn too. And so when the life pattern is designed, they'll bring the basic self or basic selves in combination with the soul, where the meshing of those two flows is really helps the thing work, so that the learnings the karmas of the basic self would match well with the soul's karma. See, karma is what attracts, which, like saying what the basic self is attracted to would tend to bring the soul into where it needs to learn. What the soul is attracted to would tend to pull the basic self into what it needs to learn. But the prioritization is always to what the soul needs to learn. So is the basic self.
Does the basic self evolve just like the soul awareness evolves?
It evolves, and it evolves in awareness, and it evolves in yes, it evolves. If you really want to understand that, think of it like this. If the soul is an extension of God, and so And then the soul learns and grows and eventually goes back into God, and all its learnings are returned into God. And so God, in a sense, understands the experience of the creation that the soul's been experiencing. Then you can understand the basic self as an extrusion or an extension out of some form of God as well. And so it's also learning and evolving and growing, you'd say, for its own, yes, but ultimately to a greater purpose of God. It's just on a different track because it's a different kind of learning.
The reason I asked that is because I realized, looking back at this situation, I've had almost no relationship with my basic self. And I get the feeling I'm missing something because of that.
Yeah. I'll let my wife take over because she knows a lot about basic selves.
Well, I think you pretty much covered it. What would your question be at this point after?
Okay, I guess the question is, how would I establish a relationship with my basic self to where it would be productive for my increasing awareness?
Well, and by the way, I was looking, and I also don't see three basic selves, but I see that one of the ones you were relating to as your basic self is actually your guardian angel.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even consider that.
Well, our guardian angels they come in with us, they incarnate with us. Sometimes they'll be with us through many lifetimes, and then, sometimes we'll get an upgrade. They evolve as well, even as our basic selves. I mean, I think pretty much, all of creation is evolving. Sometimes it evolves by devolving first and then it evolves, but ultimately it's all evolving. So it looks like one of them is your guardian angel. And so you could cultivate more of a relationship with them. They will still be your guardian angel regardless, and still protect you and whisper in your ear, which you'll either listen to or disregard, as we all do. But if we're not aware of them, but if we're aware of them, we can utilize their profound service in a much greater way.
So how would I send him a letter of introduction?
That's very cute. Well, connecting with your basic is different than connecting to your guardian angel, but it's done primarily with intention and surrender. So let's start with your basic self. So the basic self, and it very much behooves us to have a relationship with our basic self, because as JR said, often the high self or the soul will communicate through the basic, which then disseminates it to us. So it behooves us to have a relationship with our basic self. It's not all about, not eating the chocolate and, discipline. It's also about, see, our basic self knows our karmic blueprint. They come in with it, right? So we don't have to, of course, we don't have to think of going through the basic to get to the high self, but that is the logistics, if you will, of often how that occurs. So connecting with our basic can actually help us connect with higher guidance, connect with our karmic curriculum, etc. So JR said something about basic selves that was so beautiful. He said basic selves are a very spiritual part of you. They're not the boss, but they're a very spiritual part of you, and you want to approach them hat in hand, right? So let's just all do it now. Let's connect to our basic selves. And so John and everyone, if you would just close your eyes and place one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart, and just connect to the love of this gathering, the service consciousness of it, the Christ, traveler, the Holy Spirit. How much you are loved is beyond comprehension. So that love is now flowing into your spiritual heart, into your heart chakra, which is in the middle of your chest, and into your physical heart. Your spiritual heart's on the right side of your body, physical heart on the left, and heart chakra in the middle. So that love is streaming from all the highest realms into your heart. And now, see that light now, quite consciously see that light streaming from your heart chakra, your spiritual heart, and your physical heart to your belly. That's where the basic self usually hangs out. Sometimes it's on the right side of our belly, sometimes on the left, depending on whether it's in the masculine or feminine more. So just see that light streaming to your basic self. And now send all your love there. They have served you incredibly this lifetime. Their primary job is to keep the physical body alive, and they have done that against all odds, because sometimes we do not make it easy for them. So send all your loving there. Knowing that this is a very, very precious relationship, and probably only for this lifetime. We rarely have the same basic self in another lifetime. So this is a very precious relationship. Now, as Jared says, rock back on your heels, hat in hand, respecting their service and their light. And rather than, if you have a close relationship to your basic self, certainly you can put them on your lap or give them a hug. But if you haven't had quite a conscious relationship with them, why don't we just hang out and let them come to you? You may see them as a child, as an ethereal being. You may just sense their presence. And just hang out, and welcome them and say, beloved, if you'd like to enter my arms, I'm here. But you do so at your own pace. It might be right now as they jump into your arms, and it might be a few days or even a few months from now. And just say to them, oh, my sweet self, let's connect more often. What do you need from me to feel safe to connect with me? And hear what they say. And if you're willing to give that to them, let them know that you'll surely give that to them. Could be as simple as just taking a few seconds to connect for a few days. Could be something different. Could be taking care of an aspect of your health. Now, again, flood them with love. And you receive their love as it's returned with such sweetness and light. Knowing that you'll return again to connect with them. And eventually it will be more of a conscious relationship. But for now, it's enough. And so, with all gratitude, you let them go for now. Again, sending love and receiving theirs. And very slowly start to come back to conscious awareness and tell me what you're aware of, John Michael.
I think we're ready to play.
Ah, I love it. That's great. That's great. I do strongly suggest, you do this at least for a few days, if not many days. And you look so, your face is so lit up, doesn't he? It's so beautiful. So beautiful. And so, it's a simple process, but don't underestimate the profundity of it and how much it can help. And connecting to your guardian angel, very similar. We won't go through all that now for time's sake, but it's really the intention of connecting to your guardian angel. And I have a whole process for it in my book, which I don't mean to do a shameless plug, but it's not out yet. But I have a free resource on my website. If you go to aliciadoss.com, it's a PDF on how to connect to your guardian angel instantly. So that will be take a lot less time than trying to do that now, but I go through a whole process with it of how to connect to your guardian angel. So your guardian angel is similar to the basic in that they also bring tremendous joy. They certainly will help you connect to the higher angels. And through all this, who you are, your soul is sovereign, right? But these are beautiful aspects that are often underutilized. The third one that you saw could have been a missionary. At the time, I only see one basic with you, but one of them is definitely, as far as I'm aware, your guardian angel.
Oh, I want to thank you both. Thanks.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Should we do one more?
Yeah, that's Laura.
No, Laura can do it.
Laura Oakes Colsa.
Thank you guys so much for doing this. Such a treat. I have a question. Many moons ago, Alicia, you were talking to me about an angel that was working with me called Jarael.
Mhm.
And I have been working with Jarael for like 20 years, ever since you told me.
Did I tell you that 20 years ago? Wow. Great.
And I even draw pictures of, like, because you were telling me it was with the fairy realm and the elementals and, you know, all the, and so I do artwork, and I do paintings of combining the angels with the, you know, the creatures and everything. So it's just been a real blessing that you shared that with me. I really thank you.
I'm so
And
glad.
yeah, and anything else that, you know, I don't really know who Jarael is. Like, I can't find any information online. So, but if you have anything else to share about Jarael, or the other thing I want to ask you, is I would like to know a little bit more about how angels help us, and if we help angels.
Great question. Do you mind?
Thanks.
I love that question. Okay, I want to share a little bit about how to say Jarael. You can say Jarael, but it's actually closer to say Jajrael, like Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Okay.
Jajrael. The reason you're not finding Jajrael online is because I was not allowed to pick up angel books or even Google an angel. I would drop them like they were burning me. And I think it's because I needed to go direct. So the names I have for angels, I have gotten directly from the angelic language.
Okay.
So I have, for the purposes of the book, found, and it was the first time I was ever allowed to do any kind of research. They finally let me to corroborate some things in the book. So I have found some names that are more common names of some of the angels that I have been working with for decades. So Jajrael is not one of those that I found a more common name for, but in my opinion, this is just my opinion, the angelic name is a little closer to the frequency of the angel in any case. And sometimes the angelic name is very close to the common name, like Michael is his name. It could be much longer, but so Michael is pretty close to that. But Jajrael is the angel that bridges, as you shared, the angelic, Davic, and human realm. So it's very much about connecting to the magic of life, and the even more profound experience of Jajrael is connecting to archangels, archdevas. And I think that's the first time I'm ever going to say this, archhumans, which means, you know, higher frequencies in the human realm. So, so it's really, it's a beautiful bridging that is occurring with the angelic and the human and the Davic as well. And with that said, we want to always connect to the highest in the realms. So as long as it's positive and it uplifts you, fantastic. It also, the beautiful thing about connecting to the Davic is that Devas are also in a collective consciousness, also not physical. So it can help liberate us from, you know, too much attachment to this thing and reference points of the mind and the emotions. Also, because they're in a collective until they evolve to an archangel or an archdeva, they can help us connect to the oneness, to the collective of the human, to the oneness. God is all. We are all God. We are all one love, etc. Jajrael is a particularly joyous being. just like it sounds like you're depicting in your art, like fairies dancing and babbling brooks and all the incredible deep source of nature, the profundity of nature, as well as the levity and the upliftment and the soaring nature of the angelic, as well as the sovereignty and the co-creatorship and the free choice of the human. You see, you put all these three together and it expedites evolution within the individual and the realms.
Did you say, is Jajrael, is that an archangel or is that an angel?
Archangel. I would never tell you to work with an angel except your own guardian angel.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I was curious about that. I heard you say that a couple of times, and I used to just call on angels, angels of joy, angels of peace. But you're saying go higher to.
Again, it's really about intention. Do you know, like, if I'm in a bind, I'll just be like, angels, whoever's there, help, right? And then I might start getting more specific. But you see, sweetie, it's all about intention. If you say angels, because you're, I'm assuming you're working with soul transcendence, you're etc. They know that you really mean archangels.
Okay.
Now, can we be aware of angels of joy, angels of peace? Absolutely. Are they profound and wonderful and delightful? Absolutely. Sometimes I'm aware of many angels moving through my consciousness as we are bridging. Totally delightful. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It's kind of like, do you ever learn, do you have a good friend that you learn things from? Okay. You ever learn anything from a child?
Absolutely.
Ever learn anything from a pet? Ever learn anything from John Roger? Ever learn anything from Jesus? How about Rumi? See, you're learning through it all. We can learn from the angels. I just mostly say, when you're going to really connect, you work with the archangels. But angels are delightful and they're present. It's just that our sovereignty is to the soul and well above. Archangels, and this is a John Roger quote, which I don't have handy, but he says archangels are at the level of the human soul, right? Because there's free choice, there's sovereignty, etc. Then the great archangels are very high, way higher even. So it's not that you can't work with angels and especially, there's a really cool tip. Guardian angels work in guardian angel groups. So if you're in danger, I, of course, call on God, JR, and all the beings, but I would call on your guardian angel group because it usually takes a guardian angel group to like move the bus if it's going, off the rails, or to move a car, from in front of a child. And it's not that they need the support, it's that it often takes that many of them to bend the laws of the human realm.
Yeah, I do see that.
So I don't want to be so hard and fast on don't work with angels. I would just say primarily go to that source.
So is part of their work to help us, to get us to grow, to evolution, and is part of our work with them to help to bring more awareness? Like,
you nailed it. Yes,
okay.
Their work with us is to serve us. Angels are all about service. So, and what we do for them in return is they learn about free choice and co-creatorship from especially angels, because they're still evolving to free choice. See, humans are born in free choice, right? When we're a baby, if we want to lop our, sister on the head, we can, right? And then we evolve to absolute surrender and divine remembrance. Angels are born in absolute surrender and divine remembrance, one with God's will. They evolve to free choice when they become an archangel. So you see, working with angels and archangels certainly serves us because it takes us into that divine remembrance. They remember God with every breath. And it serves them because then they get a crash course in free choice. Oh my gosh, look what that human is doing. That is just crazy, I tell you. What the heck, right? Oh, I see that. But because if you look at their thought process, it makes sense while they're doing that. Let's see if we can help them choose up higher. We can't inflict,
Mhm.
We can't intervene unless God says, but let's see if we can help. So that's the proverbial angel on your right going, don't do the thing. Don't chew the person out, even though they deserve it, right? And then you have this, I don't think it's a dark angel. I think it's more our own ego going, they deserve it, darn it, right? And you have the light angel going, return love, right? So they're constantly guiding us to the light. And
Right.
we're constantly teaching them about free choice. So it's
Mhm.
beautiful
Mhm. Mhm.
relationship, mutually beneficial relationship.
Mhm. Yeah, I can even see how the negative energy forces or whatever, sometimes that pushes us too, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's another way angels are beneficial, because there's, of course, huge angels of light, and there's definitely fallen angels, like Lucifer. So, and lots of them, demons and all those fun guys. So, but angels know their own. So when
Mhm.
you call, like Michael was talking about Gabriel being a great to call
Mhm.
upon negativity that is present, then
That's good.
you call upon angels of light. I often will actually, for me, I'll often go to Archangel Michael because I have more heritage with him. So they will very effectively hold negativity at bay while I'll work to release it, clear it, etc. And sometimes they'll just clear it for us because, like, again, they know their own.
Mhm.
They're formidable allies in choosing up when darkness is upon us, going, do the thing that you shouldn't do, but you really want to do it and you're justified. And of course you're going to do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. And they're very subtle. The higher we go, the more subtle the choices, darn it.
Mhm.
Right? So these
Yeah.
angels of light can go, you've been fooled. It's a very still small voice, because again, they don't inflict. It's all in alignment with spiritual direction. Right. But it's like, beloved, turn right.
But if we ask, then we can hear more clearly, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's good to ask, like.
Definitely.
Uh-huh.
Definitely good to ask. And, again, I would let God do the bookkeeping. It's like angels, archangels, God, traveler, Holy Spirit, divine mother. Why not? Or
Mhm.
just be like God, and then God will send whomever God sends, But if we're in a more balanced place, then that's where we would cultivate that awareness of who's present with me, who do I want to connect to, and how is spirit visiting me in this moment, through what consciousness? Because it's the movement of spiritual inner awareness as opposed to the movement of spiritual feel good, vague kind of love it allness,
Right. Mhm.
all for feeling good, loving it all. But it's awareness is our golden ticket.
Yeah. So there's nothing about like, as we evolve, we ask less, right? It's still ask as much as you want, right?
Why
Okay.
not?
Yeah. Okay.
Why not?
Well, I
Absolutely.
just figured like maybe we're supposed to figure it out at some point or something.
Well, you see, love, yes, and you start to know yourself more and more and more as one with God, as God looking, as Michael says, rather than looking for God, you're God looking. So you start to know yourself more and more as that. But there's also the humility called, please assist, that I might be of greater service, that I might remember evermore.
I sure notice the difference when I am asking. I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm, miracle, miracle, miracle. It just starts. I just notice it more. But when I don't ask as much, I'm like, oh, I really need some help. It's time to get some help. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you
My pleasure. Nice to see you again.
so much. You too. Take
Thank
care.
you. You too.
We're getting towards the end, babe.
Yep, we are.
2 minutes to go.
Shall we do a tag team blessing?
Sure.
Okay. Want me to start, or do you want to start?
Well, why don't you start, ladies first? You're in such a groove. I'm so enjoying listening to you and learning from you.
Well, I just want to give a big shout out of thanks to you guys for not only allowing me to serve, but I was feeling pretty lousy today. I was in some seriously rough shape, and I feel better now. I didn't know if I was going to be able to stay for the whole class. I was kind of crawling up the stairs to get here, but I feel much better. I hope it doesn't happen, what does happen sometimes with the work, where it's like, then you're done with the work and then you crash again. We've both experienced that. But so I want to thank you. I think this has been of service to me. So thank you. Okay, shall I do a blessing?
Yeah, go ahead.
And so let's just come together in the name of the Christ of remembrance, of the joyous spirit that we all share, for we are indeed one in love, one in light, one in the blessings that already are. And so be aware again of connecting to each one present, each one to listen to the archives, that you know we are all just walking each other home. To paraphrase Ram Dass, we are all walking each other home. We are one in the divine sea, in the holy knowing. And the angels, spirit, they witness our travails, our challenges, and they so applaud our bravery. For this is not an easy level, and yet we keep on keeping on with our countenances upturned to the Lord again and again and again. Let us this day choose loving, especially when all else might prevail upon us to choose less. And let that love begin with ourselves. And so as you place a hand on your heart chakra, again now flood your body, your basic self, your guardian angels, all with light, all aspects of you. Being aware of your soul, being aware of yourself as one with your soul, and then up even higher as one with spirit. All parts of you streaming love to the other parts. That in the wholeness of who you are the very presence of love, the very presence of light. You are one with the Lord, with the Mother, Father, God. And it is only just beginning, for the best is yet to come, for we are ever evolving, all together, all evolving as the presence of love.
We open ourselves most fully at this time to receive the blessings of the spiritual master, John Roger, that we might be activated even more fully into the great knowing, and the great loving that he portrayed so eloquently and so consistently for all of us. And that same gift is present in this moment and will always be present, but it's amplified this day. Thus we can partake, receive to overflowing, and grant the earth and all those on it to also receive this blessing. For his is the love complete, the lovable, the love of God for God. Each of us can open our hearts as we can and as we will to receive of this truth, to surrender to this truth, to make our lives a celebration of this truth, the overflowing of this love might create a consecration of our lives. power of that loving eternality of God might pierce the presentation of illusion and separation and activate the divine intelligence and the divine truth in every being, that all might partake of this truth in a conscious way, that they might be forever blessed. And in fact, forever awakened to the presence of the God that is in us, through us, and for us eternally. Amen.
Amen.
Very special.
Very special. Thank you all. We love you. I'll see you in a month, and Michael will see you next week.
Bless you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
God
much,
bless
Michael.
you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you.
Alicia.
So much for
Thank
the
you,
work.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
Hello,
you.
hello. God
That was
bless.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Lee.
Thank